Hey everyone, ready to dig into something a little less fun than usual, but probably way more important.
Yeah, not exactly light entertainment today.
We're talking about Glendale Water
Yeah.
and Power's proposed rate increase. And we've got this pretty intense report
Oh, yeah.
from Nugent Strategies and Solutions to help us figure out just what's going on.
It's a doozy.
So before we get too deep, maybe just a quick reminder.
Sure.
We're specifically talking about electricity rates here, right? Not water.
Right. Electricity. Glendale Water and Power, or GWP, provides electricity to like 90,000 customers in Glendale, California,
Give or take a few.
right? And this study, well, it shows they're saying they need more money, like a lot more.
A significant funding gap, as they
Yeah,
put
and
it.
it's not just, to keep things running this week or whatever. They're looking way ahead, all the way to 2028.
Planning for the future. Responsible, I guess. But gotta wonder, what's making everything so much more expensive all of a sudden?
Well, the report says the biggest thing is power supply costs.
Okay, so how much of their budget is that?
Hold on to your hats, because it's a whopping 77%.
Seriously, 77%.
Yeah.
Just to get the electricity made and to our houses.
Pretty much. It's generating power, buying it from other places, all those contracts, the whole shebang.
Okay, so that's a big chunk. So to be clear, that's the main reason they're hiking up our rates.
It was a huge part of it, yeah.
Right.
But it's not the whole story. There's also the issue of, well, they need to do some major upgrades.
Upgrades, like what?
Their infrastructure, big time. Like, for example, they're talking about repowering the whole Grayson power plant.
Wow. That sounds like a pretty big undertaking.
It is, and expensive. It means switching from old tech to new, more efficient stuff, trying to get more sustainable,
So that's where all the renewable energy stuff comes in.
Exactly. They're adding this huge battery for energy storage too, which, as they shift to more renewables, that's going to be crucial.
Makes sense. So, all right, we've got these rising power supply costs, we've got big infrastructure projects, all of that's got to be paid for somehow. But I think what our listeners really want to know is, how does that translate to what we're going to be paying?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. Well, think of it like this. GWP has all these expenses, right? And all of those costs have to get split up somehow between all their customers.
Shared burden, shared responsibility, all that.
Pretty much. And the way they do it, it's not as straightforward as you might think.
Oh boy, here comes the complicated part. Hit me with it.
They divide everyone into these different groups, these customer classes. You've got residential, like us, then small businesses, medium, large, even a whole separate category just for lighting.
So wait, you're saying not all of us are getting hit with the same increase?
Nope. How much each group pays, it depends on a couple things. First, how much electricity they use overall, obviously. But then there's this other thing called peak demand.
Peak demand. Sounds ominous. What's that all about?
So peak demand is like, imagine a super hot summer day, everyone's blasting their AC.
Can't say I haven't done that.
Right, well, that puts a huge strain on the system. Those are the peak demand times.
So like rush hour for the power grid.
You got it. And certain types of customers, like big businesses, they contribute more to those peak times than, say, a family in their house.
So GWP factors that in when they're deciding how much each group should pay.
Exactly. If you're using a ton of electricity when the system's already maxed out, you're going to be paying more. Makes sense in theory, I guess. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What are we actually talking about? How much are rates going up?
Yeah, the big question. What's this going to do to our wallets?
Well, it's not quite as simple as just one number. GWP is proposing these, phased increases.
Phased. You mean it's not all going to hit at once?
Thankfully not. They're spreading out over 3 years.
Okay, that's something, at least. But how much are we talking each year?
Well, that's where it gets a little tricky, because the increases aren't the same for everyone.
Hold on, you're saying some people are getting hit harder than others?
It looks that way, yeah. Residential customers, and small businesses too, are looking at the biggest jump in the first year.
Come on, give us some specifics. What kind of jump are we talking here?
Well, for residential, the report recommends about an 18.6% increase that first year.
Ouch. All right, so what's that in actual dollars? What's the average person going to see on their bill?
Let's say, for example, you're an average residential customer using about 500 kilowatt hours a month. That 18.6% increase could mean about $15 more on your bill every month, just that first year.
$15 a month right out the gate. That's going to be noticeable. And then it keeps going up after that.
Yeah, the plan is 14% increases in both the second and third years.
So another $10 or so each year on top of that initial 15, assuming, of course, that your energy use stays about the same.
Right, so by the end of the 3 years, you could be looking at, an extra $35 a month.
That's a lot. People are going to feel that.
No doubt about it. And remember, these are just averages we're talking about. If you use more than 500 kilowatt hours, you're going to see an even bigger jump.
So basically, if you want to keep your bill from going way up, you better start thinking about ways to use less electricity.
Exactly. Energy efficiency isn't just good for the planet anymore, it's good for your bank account too, especially with these rate hikes looming.
Good point. We'll definitely have to talk more about that later. But first, I'm curious, is there anything else GWP is doing to address this funding gap? Besides just jacking up our rates, I mean.
They are, actually. The report mentions a couple of other things they're exploring.
Like what?
Well, one option is issuing bonds. Basically, they'd be borrowing money to cover the upfront costs of those big infrastructure projects.
So like taking out a loan?
Pretty much. They're also looking at using their reserve funds strategically.
So kind of like a rainy day fund for the utility.
Exactly. They can dip into those reserves when they need to try and smooth out the rate increases a bit. It's about trying to, soften the blow for customers as much as possible while still making sure they can invest in the future of the grid.
Trying to strike that balance, I guess.
Yeah.
But still, even with these other funding sources, those rate increases are going to be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, no sugarcoating it. Higher rates are going to hurt, especially for folks who are already, stretching every dollar. And it makes you think, how transparent is all this really?
Right. GWP put the report out there, which is good. But let's be honest, how many people are actually going to slog through all those pages of charts and jargon?
Exactly. That's kind of why we do this, right? Break it down, make it understandable, but it still brings up this bigger question. What role do we play in all this as ratepayers, I mean? Can we actually do anything about these decisions?
Besides just grumbling about our bills when they come.
Well, yeah, hopefully more than that. I mean, first off, staying informed is huge. Knowing what's driving these increases, like we've been talking about, that's step one. Then, you can actually engage with GWP directly. Go to those public meetings, ask questions, make your concerns heard.
Those meetings are open to anyone, right?
Yeah, and they're a chance to hear straight from the people calling the shots. But honestly, don't underestimate the power of, collective action. If you can band together with other people who are worried about this stuff through community groups or whatever, that can make a much bigger impact.
Strike the numbers, right?
Exactly. But even on an individual level, there are things you can do. Like we talked about energy efficiency before, but it's worth saying again, especially with these rate hikes coming down the pike.
So like those classic tips, turning off lights, unplugging stuff when you're not using it, all that.
Yep, every little bit helps. And don't forget things like adjusting your thermostat. Even a couple degrees can make a difference on your bill.
And if you're really serious about going green and saving some cash, there's always solar panels.
True, though that's obviously a bigger investment up front. But it can pay off in the long run, especially with all the incentives and stuff out there these days.
So bottom line, it's about taking charge, right? Not just being at the mercy of these rate increases, but actively trying to reduce your energy use.
Definitely. It's not just about saving a few bucks. It's about being a more responsible consumer and, thinking about the future.
Well, folks, that about wraps up our deep dive into GWP's proposed rate increases. Hopefully you're leaving here a little less confused, a little more informed, and maybe even a little empowered to do something about it.
You're not just stuck with whatever they decide. You can make a difference.
So stay informed, stay involved, keep asking questions. And hey, if you want to really go down the rabbit hole, check out GWP's full report. It's out there for everyone to see.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, stay curious.